Whatever I can, be it early morning, late afternoon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Granny's Peach Tea. We have a disco dancing Saturday night, as usually is kind of reserved for Fridays, but Saturdays are no exception either.
When the boogie calls, you got to answer.
Exactly. There's no denying it. So, what's up? We got, for those who are counting, this is episode 196. And thanks for joining us. If you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, if you're joining us on YouTube, or wherever you find your audio on the podcast, we always appreciate the support. I am Ed, and with me as always is Jason. Jason, what's up, man? What's going on?
How's it going? Good to be here on this Friday, Saturday night. A little disco dancing. Good stuff. I'm gonna actually open up I'm gonna do my little bit here a bit differently. I am going to read a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley called Ozymandias because it completely links into what we're talking about today. So it's real short. Okay. It's a sonnet.
Okay.
I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunklets of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that it's their well-known passions red, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away."
Wow, okay. That is definitely changing it up.
That is how I opened my unit on Watchmen when you get to teach it in high school.
Nice.
But completely intact, because that is literally the fucking one of the thesis statements of the movie we are covering tonight is how do you govern? What constitutes something that's going to be a lasting society? It doesn't end well for our friend Ozymandias in the poem, so we'll discuss how it ends for him in the movie.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I know the sharing is taking a little bit longer because there's some technical issues going on with Facebook. So I'm sharing the YouTube link over to Facebook right now.
Okay, yeah, so I can keep talking. I'll just keep talking. That's fine. So excited to be here. The song that you played today, Ed, it made me feel like jumping out of a helicopter and shooting gas bombs at protesters. And is there anything more American than that in today's America?
No, not at all, actually. I think that would I could see that definitely going down. And there were some things in Watchmen that definitely kind of rung a little true to maybe some stuff today, which seems to be happening with some of our material lately. Definitely not planned or anything like that. We just happen to be doing our Alan Moore run these days. So, yeah, I don't know. And again, it's interesting because I really, before I dive too much, but yes, I know I didn't do our rundown quickly. But Watchmen is we have two movies of the week, technically, this week, which is rare.
We do.
Our movie of the week is Watchmen, as we're continuing our Alan Moore run. So we got Zack Snyder's Watchmen. But we also have, Jason and I were fortunate enough to see Thunderbolts at that pre-fan screening on Tuesday night. So we're going to do our first non-spoiler review because we haven't really had a chance since we started the show to really get to see too many things before they came out. So we're going to definitely talk about that in very non-spoilery fashion. So if you want to kind of just like a taste of, or just get our thoughts of the film, non-spoilers, we will stay clear of it. I promise you, we will not be spoiling the movie, sharing our overall thoughts. We will be talking about the movie, but again, nothing to be spoiled whatsoever. And then we also have the gut-wrenching last week's episode of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, which I just rewatched right before we came on.
Holy shit, that episode.
So
I mean, we'll talk about it, but
Yeah, let me start one more share, and then we're good to go.
But so yeah, the interesting. So I'll talk about the experience of going to see the Thunderbolts without getting into the movie. I had never done one of these pre-screening fan things. Ed has done a bunch of them. I've never done them before. It was an amazing experience. They had people from Marvel there taking photos. We had to sign not an NDA, so I actually legally I can spoil the shit out of this movie right now, but I won't. They took pictures. They got fan reactions. They gave us, and I wish I had it on hand because I do still have it, but it's in my kitchen. They gave us a box of Wheaties with the Thunderbolts on it, and it was filled with popcorn. And they gave us a free drink, a free beverage cup, and there you go, the tickets and
paper tickets.
Just to see it, like with paper tickets, which I kept mine as well. I just don't know what I did with it. And just the experience, like Ed and I go to the movies a lot. We see almost all the movies that we cover together. And we've had some good experiences. We've had some fucking really bad experiences. But I think this is the first time that the experience we had was everyone wants to be here. Everyone is engaged. This was for fans. And I think that experience that blew me away because no one's talking, no one's yelling like, don't go in the basement, Ant-Man, or shit like that. It was nice. And that's a spoiler. Ant-Man is in this movie, and he does in fact go into the basement.
Oh man. Yeah, no, and that's also why, part of the reason I love going on preview night, the Thursday night before it officially comes out, which I'm still amazed studios do that still, is that you would assume that it would be everyone who really wants to be there, and you're amongst fans, and nobody really talks, and you get a good, I love a good crowd reaction, like a sold out first showing. People are excited. I don't mind cheering and stuff like that, or laughter and stuff like that, or a good and so, things like that. I'm fine with that. It's just don't carry on a conversation. And it's true. These days, you have no idea what you're walking to because it doesn't even matter anymore when you go. So, yeah, what Jason's describing is Tuesday night, as most anyone watching probably may I'm assuming you've seen, is there was Fandango dropped that thing the week before where it was a quick link across social media. I found it on X because I happened to be on the L train just dicking around on my phone, and it just happened to pop up where they offered them and Marvel, Fandango and Marvel offered a fan screening, and you had to sign up for passes that didn't guarantee you access, but you had to get there early and you had to be one of the first people in there. And that was it. So we did the whole thing. Luckily, I was able to get 2 passes for myself, 2 passes for my wife, Angie, and shared one with Jason and shared one with our buddy, Sam. So the 4 of us got to go. We were one of the, what were we? We were in the first 7, 8 people that got to go in. And it's always a cool experience, and we had to line up many hours early. And yeah, it was fun though. But luckily, we had some pretty cool people that were around us. We were chatting with, and one guy behind me, he had a whole story of his own, where he signed up for the Boston screening by accident, and then that guy was
he came from out of
he
came from out of town with no ticket, and his plan was to charm his way in there, and he did.
He did. He went there and he was going to just try to get them to let him in with the Boston pass screening. And he was right behind me. And apparently he got there at 9 in the morning. And he didn't know, when he saw no one was lined up, he went and saw Warfare or something like that. He killed some time. And then he lined up. And the person who came in after him, their +1 just happened to not be able to make it that night. And he had an extra ticket. So this dude, fate really stepped in and got this guy into the screen. It was awesome to see because again, he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He was hyped up to be there, beyond excited. Yeah. So, yeah, good on him, man. But yeah. So Jason, I don't want to start. You good? Yeah, you froze for a second, Jason.
Yeah, sorry, my internet. My internet's a bit wonky because of the rain. My internet's wonky when it's beautiful out. So,
all right, so I guess let's get into it. We got to see Thunderbolts on IMAX, like you had mentioned. Overall thoughts on the film. I loved this film. I really adored it. I think it's top tier MCU, and not just where does it stat? It's like the best since the best MCU movie since Endgame. Like this movie, legitimately is, I think, in the top. I think there's 36 MCU movies right now. I would say this is probably in the top 12 for me, at least.
I can absolutely see that. I loved this as well. I thought this was absolutely top tier. I think they really nailed the team aspect, because that's hard. It's one thing when you've got like your solo person, right? That they're the star, but it's a different thing when you've got to balance a team. Everyone's got to have their moment. But everyone does, in my opinion, for the most part, get their moment. And I think the villains are super. I think we talked about like the problematic villains in the MCU's overall history, and I think that the villains really bring it. There's a richness to them. It isn't just like they're kind of Thanos level in the sense that it's not just I want to destroy, and so yeah, this is absolutely top tier. I love this movie.
Yeah, I thought the action was really good. I thought the chemistry between the cast, especially the Thunderbolts team, was really, really good. Especially, I'll say, between Yelena and Bob. Like, they have a lot, to do in this movie with each other, and they have a really good chemistry working together. And, David Harbour, he is the, comedic relief in the film, good. And he does it to like such a high level, and even his chemistry with Florence Pugh's Yelena. I mean, they were really good in Black Widow, and they have a really good. I think it's even better in this film.
No, I agree, and the thing is, like, it's David Harbour's Red Guardian absolutely is comic relief, but he also has pathos. There are moments a specific moment between him and Yelena where it's like, no, he's not just here to offset the seriousness. He also brings emotions to this. He also brings something to the team that isn't just he makes us laugh. And I think that also is really important, because they're not just, it's not like the hero, the Joker, the this, the that, the comic relief. Characters that are fleshed out and have relationships that matter in this. And even the comic relief gets a couple of really strong emotional beats.
Yeah, and I also want to talk more about like Lewis Pullman's Bob in this. Who, I mean, again, we've seen the trailer, so I think anything that's in the trailers we can discuss without spoiling, because again, it's in the trailer. So Bob, who's also Sentry / Void in this film, he does a phenomenal job. I think like. He's got a lot of emotional beats to handle and things like that. He's asked to do a lot in this film, and I think he definitely crushes it, on all levels of this stuff.
I absolutely agree. I think he was top notch. I mean, he's essentially playing two different characters, and it's great. Like, he really pulls it off. Like, like I even forgot that he was a Nepo baby. You know what I'm saying? Which and him, and I think it's funny that like we have two Nepo babies in this movie. So I kind of wish that all of the Thunderbolts were Nepo babies. That would be the team. But he, like, all jokes aside, he's top notch. His acting is really, really good. I think. As much as I love his dad, Bill Pullman, I think he kind of shows a bit more acting range in this than his father has in certain movies.
Yeah, I mean, he really does bring it in this, and I think this might be one of the first things I've seen him in, honestly. So, I mean, hats off. What's really crazy is that when you Google Thunderbolts, and I was just I like to have like the cast Oh, bullshit. No, he was in Top Gun Maverick, and I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot he was even in that movie. And he was in Strangers Prey at Night. So this is
I
definitely
still haven't seen that.
it's not good. I will say that. And I love The Strangers,
No?
but the sequel was not good, and the reboot is also the reboot's worse than the sequel to Prey at Night. So yeah.
Okay.
Damn, that was 2018. Man. Maybe it was a little while ago. That's probably why I don't remember him being in that thing. But let's see, who else in there? I mean, Bucky. Sebastian Shan can play Bucky in his sleep at this point. He also brings a lot to it as well.
Yeah, and he's a super talent. Like even outside of the MCU, he's proven he is a bona fide movie star.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that because I think he's very good. Like he's not very good. He's excellent. Like I think he brings a gravitas to the movie and to the role of Bucky.
Yeah, and I also like you mentioned Wyatt Russell playing John Walker, U.S. agent. He's also got his storyline's very endearing and stuff like that as well. Even of what we know of him in the past, because it's no secret. Like this movie is about a team of people who all want a second chance. We've seen all their faults, most of all their faults, right? Because even like Yelena's, we haven't really seen all of the other stuff. I mean, we get to see some more in this film, but like through Hawkeye and through Black Widow, or the previous two times we've seen her, we've seen her do some things more in Hawkeye. She was more villainish in Hawkeye, especially her scenes with Kate Bishop, which were great. She gets a lot to do in this film as well. I mean, sorry, and like Wyatt Russell, though, like last time we saw him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I mean, he murdered a guy in cold blood with Captain America's shield.
Which they do address. They do address in this movie,
yes.
and I won't say any more than that. But I do want to, and I point that out because they're not hiding behind the bad things these people have done. That is kind of the point.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's at the center of this movie. It's the motivation they essentially all have to be involved in this thing, like at all. Also great to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Jason and I are big Seinfeld fans, so seeing Elaine still going into, she's great in everything she's in. I mean, also she's Val, who we've seen peppered throughout the MCU. Also, great to see her in this thing too.
Serious question for you about the character of Val. Do you think when she dances like Elaine, or do you think she can actually move?
Oh my God, I would die if they did something like that with her at some point, where they had her dance like Elaine. That would be phenomenal. Kevin Feige, please make that happen. Get some scene where she's dancing like that. It would be so worth it.
I missed you. I missed Daddy. I want Daddy.
Okay, bud.
So yeah, it's I guess another thing to address is for anyone who wants to see this film and maybe hasn't seen everything else leading up to it. I think it's not. I will say this. I think they do a great job of giving you enough information that you need for this film without having seen anything else. But if you want to know more, then yes, Black Widow, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Ant-Man and the Wasp are films that you probably have wanted to watch so you can get a better idea of who these characters are prior and what their past is. Right? And Bucky has been peppered throughout the MCU. So, I mean, any movies, but if you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, you will definitely get enough of Bucky in there as well. Did you also feel the same way, or did you feel like?
I was going to say, I agree. Yeah, they give you what you need for these characters. You don't need to do homework. I mean, I've only seen I've only seen a lot of that stuff once when we covered it years ago, so it's not like it was fresh in my mind. I got enough. I knew what was going on with these characters, and that's they don't expect their knowledge. It helps if you do. It deepens what's your understanding of what's going on, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I guess kind of like some people who, if you're going into Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, I think those movies do a good job of again bringing you up to speed on what you need, but if you want to know more, if you want to feel the full emotional weight of the whole thing, I always feel it's better to have seen all the required stuff. But yeah, you still get the point of it.
Yeah.
And maybe if you like this film, you go back and watch the stuff then, and then you can kind of get your fill then. This movie also does have a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, and the only thing is that without spoiling it, I will say is that
yes,
I think this is the best the MCU has done with their mid and post-credit scenes in quite some time. Like, they are utilized really well to forward the overall plot of the MCU.
I agree, because there are three, I think, types of mid-credit scenes, mid-post-credit scenes. There's the ones that really forward and drive you into the next one, the next project. There's the ones that enhance the movie you just saw, and then there's patience. It's a virtue, which is fun, but that's their third type. It's like the joke one. This, I felt, the mid-credit scene gives us a little more to what the movie did, what the movie was doing, and the end credit scene pushes us forward to the future.
Yeah, definitely following up on the events, but you're right. It shows us, moving forward, what was, post the actual story, what's going on here, and used to get you excited for what's to come in the MCU. So, highly recommended. Definitely go check it out as soon as you can. I think that's kind of all we can say without spoilers. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we get it? Because next week we are going to have a full-on spoiler review, wide open spoiler discussion. This is Thunderbolts will be our official movie the next week. But anything else you wanted to touch base on?
Am I frozen here? I can't tell.
No, you're good now.
Yes, I am. Am I back?
Yeah, you were good. You were good before.
Why is my internet so bad today?
All right, we are. Jason, you're good.
But you got to lay down and rest if you're going to be in here. I can't hear anything. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
No, we can. We're good. Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess for Thunderbolts, I mean that's kind of it. So I mean, highly recommended. 2 thumbs up. Top tier MCU. Go toe to toe with anything I think that's had post Endgame. Whether it be Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Deadpool and Wolverine. For me, at least, it's right there with any of those. And a lot of the pre-MCU entries previous to Infinity War and to Avengers Endgame. So, well, again, next week we'll get into spoilers more as any people have had the chance to see the movie then. And we will, fully discuss further details, at that point. But yeah, super excited. Can't wait to discuss it wide open next week. All right, so that will go ahead and take us to our show of the week, which we got is The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, which we will drop the spoiler ticker across the bottom. So if you haven't seen The Last of Us and you're trying to binge watch or anything like that, you can come back and check us out at a later time. But if you've seen The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, then feel free to jump in with us right now. So for those who may not follow us, like I'm the one who has not played these games. So I'm just kind of like getting this information, as the show goes on and presents it to us. Jason does have some experience with The Last of Us from the video game perspective. So Jason, you knew what was coming in this episode, correct? Like before it happened. I've
gotten only a little bit into The Last of Us 2, but it was spoiled for me what happens with Joel. And I didn't know when it was coming. in the season, but I knew it was coming. And then we talked about it on Tuesday before I'd watched this, and you were like, "Did you watch it?" I was like, "Joel, right?" And you were like, "Yeah." But I will say this: I did not know how it happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna just throw it all on the table here. Spoilers for The Last of Us season 2, episode 2. Joel dies at the end of this episode, and he doesn't just die. He is brutally tortured to death. And so just to, that's really the big thing of the episode. I think the lead up is, Joel goes out on patrol with Dinah, leaving his daughter to sleep. She kind of wants to go. She wanted to go on patrol with him so they could, she could reconcile. She has this great line, I know it looks bad from the inside, but he's still Joel and I'm still me, and we are still essentially father and daughter. They are essentially father and daughter. And so she's not with him. That's important. They go out. We see the Firefly woman who wakes up this sleeping underground den of clickers, and pretty much almost gets killed. Joel saves her. Completely the reason she survived that attack. And once she finds out who he is, she pretty much convinces him to come back to her cabin with her friends to do what she set out to do. While all that's going on...
Well, I wanted to talk about that for a second, though. All right. So, regarding that, prior to that, we see this group of former Fireflies together, and they're in the cabin or, whatever the heck that is that they got. They're looking at the whole setup in Wyoming. Now, they thought that they were going to go ahead and they were looking about some campsites, a little campsite thing, maybe some tents and whatnot. But then when the daylight comes around, they see that this is a fully formed town with power, with guards at gates. They have their shit together. And one of the guys that's with Abby literally is basically shitting his pants and telling them essentially listen, if we go in there, we're the ones who are dying. Nobody else is we can't take them. There's no chance. We probably should retreat and maybe try to come up with some other plan because we have no fucking chance at doing this. He doesn't tell Abby that straight out before she leaves, but he tells the rest of the crew because he just, which by the way, I thought this was funny too, is he tells Abby before she leaves that he's got a plan. Not a fully formed plan. Maybe concepts of a plan is what he has at that point. And,
he does say it's a concept of a plan.
Right? I thought, that jumped in my head right away. I thought that was kind of funny. And, she's confident before she leaves. But then, he tells the rest of the crew, you know what my plan is? My plan is to try to get her to get the fuck out of here and turn the other way. Her revenge thing, we're all angry. Yep. We all want Joel. But this is too much. We bit off more than we can chew. These guys are... Let's step back and live to fight another day. But the thing you just described, really, they got pretty fortunate with how this played out.
Oh, yeah.
That Abby, again, like you said, she stumbled upon his clickers. They come running down. They chase her. That scene, by the way, was intense. That was really intense with how she's climbing under the gate. Really the gate is collapsing on her. That was wild how that went. And I was
yeah. And then when
on the edge of my seat with this thing.
When she gets to the ladder and starts climbing up the ladder and they're trying to pull her down. Yeah.
That was pretty intense. And then once I saw somebody pull out a gun and shoot and then, offer their hand, I'm like, oh shit, this is fucking Joel. And I'm like, but
I knew it right away.
But I'm not just the way things go, and we'll get to that later. But I was thinking along the lines of standard TV show where I'm like, this whole saving her life is going to maybe change her mind. Maybe win her over. Maybe Joel's not so bad. But, again, we get to that in a minute. But I just want to talk about how this got really...
It does not.
No, Joel fell in their lap, essentially. Completely by chance.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so, yeah, no, thank you for having on that. So this also brings wakes up all these clickers, and they start attacking the town. And so while we have this whole Joel storyline, because a bad snowstorm comes in, Joel and his crew aren't able to get back. Ellie's not able to get back. There's this, this unsure of who's alive, who's not, and then these huge ass clickers just charge the town.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an amazing battle scene, like of them like throwing over gasoline, shooting the gas and lighting them on fire, gunning them down, and then they breach the wall. And then I think MVP is Joel's brother, who gets down there, and he's, because there are civilians, and the civilians are trying to, the civilians are hiding. They had a plan, but the clickers are trying. They're smart. They're jumping through windows to get out of the gunfire. And there's this one big one who's going to go where the civilians are hiding, and he pulls out a gun. He starts firing at it to get its attention, and he leads on a chase. And he's got this, the bloater, and he's got this flamethrower on his back. And I don't know about you, but again, I didn't play this part of the video game. I thought he was done for when the bloater corners him.
I don't know. I guess I didn't know if he was done for. I felt like somebody else was going to come in and help him, though. What ends up happening when the bloater kind of just like falls down and basically has had enough at that point, that I didn't see coming. Yeah. I thought someone else was going to come in and kind of like, save him. I wanted to ask you about the bloater thing. Like, I want to know more about them. Do they tell you in the games why they're so big and why they're so like mutated? Like, are they just big people that got infected?
No, I think it has to do with you get the bloaters a lot in places with water. It's people who got stuck in the water when they became. So they literally absorb all this water and just become big, and they mutate because of the
spores,
the mushrooms. So I think that's what it is, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Okay, I figured out.
But they're badasses in the game too.
No, they look badasses in this because we had one in season 1 also. But I wanted to ask you about that because I'm like, I was thinking about that while I'm watching. I'm like, is this like a really big dude or something like that? Or like, no, there's got to be more to it than that. I don't know if there was like multiple people that like got merged together or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's literally a matter of that they happen to have died with like in water, and I guess the snow in this might have done it because a lot of them were under the snow, and it's just it changes them because they absorb all this water and it blowed out literally, and I think in the game they spit shit at you too, if I remember correctly, like liquid.
Something to look forward to, and because I'm sure this isn't the last bloater we're gonna have. So
no, I'm sure not. So the town gets saved. But it's a rough battle. A lot of people die. You actually see this was rough. You see one guy who got bit, and I don't know if you caught this because it's kind of on the side of the camera, and he gives one of the soldiers what he's giving him that gun for. Pop.
Yeah.
Because apocalypse. Okay, if we are in a zombie apocalypse, don't pull the "I'm fine, I'm hiding the bite." No, you're dead already. Just accept it and don't take anyone with you. And he's the second MVP for understanding that.
Yeah, no, you just need to speak up and that's it. I mean, with all of these things, there's different ideology. Like in The Walking Dead, usually you can, if you get it like in your arm, you can cut the arm off and maybe sever it in time, which is what happens with like Rick Grimes and shit. But, Rick Grimes in the comic book. But, and also in the other show, the spinoff. But yeah, there's things like that. And in The Last of Us, I'm not sure what the mythology, if you can do the same thing or not, or if it's kind of like once you bit, unless you're Ellie, you're completely toast. Which I'm assuming that is the case that, in this one.
I'm pretty sure that's it because the fungus gets in your bloodstream and starts taking over right away. There's nothing you can do about it.
Okay. But yeah, the battle scene was really cool. Also reminded me very much of like Game of Thrones. Like I kind of felt like it was like the White Wall and stuff, and the White Walkers, and kind of brought me kind of like back to that, which I thought was really cool.
You can absolutely see that. But yes, great battle. And then while this is going on, Joel sees it. He sees the explosion, and he wants to go back. And the Firefly's like, no, it's only 5 minutes away. We'll fight with you. We'll help you. And they, of course, don't. And she gets him there, and oh my God, this scene where they got Dinah there, and she's like, help them, and they're helping her, and she's talking, and then she just goes, so, everyone, this is Joel. Joel, these are my friends. And every one of the Fireflies knows what's going on. One of them grabs Dinah, puts a gun to her head. There was nothing he could have done about this.
No.
That's the heartbreaking thing. He did everything right, but there was just nothing he could do. And he's like, I saved your life. And she goes, what life? You took my life. And what you find out, and I think this is really interesting, they're not there because of the 18 armed men he killed. They're there because of the one unarmed doctor he murdered unnecessarily, because that was her dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting distinction, because I think they're soldiers. And she says something to him. She says, I was in the militia for a long time, then I joined the Fireflies, and I always had a code. You don't kill people who can't defend themselves. So I genuinely think in that line, they are telling us, we're not upset that you killed. I mean, we're upset, but we're not here for you because you murdered 18 armed Fireflies. We're here for you because you murdered someone who could not defend themselves, and that is unacceptable. And I think that adds a lot of pathos and a lot of sort of relatability to this woman. And you find out that was her dad. It was a doctor, and it was her dad. And they show the scene from the first season where he does just walk in and just shoot him in the head. He actually doesn't have to.
No,
and
he doesn't at all.
Says he doesn't. And she says the nurses said that you walked by him, you shot him and walked by him without even looking at him. And so that's why she's on this. That's why she's so brutal. And everyone else just wants to put a bullet. But she shoots him in the leg with well, first she monologues for a while, and Joel says, like, cuts her off and says, just shut the fuck up and do it already.
Well, this is after she also takes a shotgun and blasts him in the fucking shin or the knee to begin with. Like, he's already and they strap him up too. Yeah, they strap up his leg to make sure that the pressure is there so he doesn't bleed out and die from it either.
Yes, and that's when they say just end this. They drug Dinah. They don't kill her because the other Fireflies make it very clear. I don't want to kill, except for that one crazy one who kind of seems okay with it. The one who wants to kill Ellie when she shows up.
Yeah, he seems to be a bit of a dick.
But everyone else like, no, we're here for Joel, no one else. So they put her under, and legitimately she's still alive, and she takes a golf club, and you see her start beating him, and then we cut to Ellie, and Ellie finds the cabin because she's out looking for Joel because she hears that Joel is not reported in. She gets in there, and you think hopefully she could do something. She's got her gun, but they get the jump on her. And when she comes back, Joel's dead. Like, he's not dead, but he's not recovering from that. He is bloodied and beaten and destroyed physically. Like, and she's screaming. This was so heart-wrenching. Joel, get up, Joel. And she's begging them, please don't do this. And they're just like, and they're holding her down, and there's nothing she can do. And then the Firefly woman just takes like a baton and shoves it through the back of his neck, ending him. And you could see Ellie like be destroyed in that moment. And I'm sure that this is the impetus of where this is going. She says to them, I will kill you. You are all dead. And I think it's an interesting connection that the Fireflies go on a mission of revenge because Joel killed her father.
Mm-hmm.
And now they killed Ellie's father.
It's a cycle.
And I'm pretty sure. Yep. And I think that's really, really. And while he was defenseless, like, yep. Because she makes a point. Oh, I don't kill defenseless people, but for you, I'll make an exception.
Well, she also says, like, that's you now. Like, you have a code of not killing people that can't defend themselves, and now that's you. So she basically is going an eye for an eye, essentially with this.
Yeah.
Like the way Abby sees this is, yeah, Joel murdered her unarmed father for no reason while he couldn't defend himself, and guess what? Now she just murdered Joel while he couldn't defend himself either in front of Ellie. So now obviously Ellie's going to be on her revenge thing where Abby's walking away thinking she's got her revenge. She got what she wanted. And she even has that look on her face as they show her and her crew like kind of like leaving and stuff like that. And she seems like, somewhat relieved or satisfied, whatever you want to call it. She got the blood that she was out for to get there. And to touch on what you had said, it is true because them showing the scene where Joel murders her father from season 1 is kind of, somewhat making sure that, yes, I mean, a lot of fans are, you're going to hate Abby for sure. I can't stand her now, even on the rewatch, and I knew it was coming, like, just her face throughout the episode leading up to it ticks you off and you get angry. But she is a character where you can understand her side of this kind of as well. She took it to an extreme as well because, again, she's angered. She had her father. This is the person who murdered her father. But she also did see, and I wondered this before that scene happened, what got me thinking of maybe there was redemption for her, for Joel in her eyes a little bit, because the brief part she met Joel before that, she got to see of Joel, was Joel being a good dude. Like, went out of his way to save her, to make sure she was safe and everything like that, brought her back to her cabin, saw him trying to go help his people from a distance, was ready to go, even though he just was freezing his ass off out there as well. He wanted to get back into the fight immediately, once he got his partner to safety and also got her to safety. So that's what made me think for its moment that maybe there was some way that Joel can get redemption. And I think in a lot of other shows, either that would have happened and she would have saw Joel in a different light, or Ellie would have jumped in and saved him just in time and he would have been in a coma or some shit like that, for X amount of time and recovered eventually. But no, not this time.
No, the show is unflinching in it. And I think it's interesting too, and I hope this is explored in the future. And I kind of wish I didn't just download the game I downloaded that I'm now addicted to, because I'm not going to get back to play this in time for the show. But I really do think that she was out. The Fireflies are there for justice. She's there for vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
Justice would have been maybe to put a bullet in his head, maybe to reconsider, to weigh what he did to them versus who he was now. But this was not justice. This was revenge. It doesn't matter who he is now. It doesn't matter what he's done. The only thing that defines him in her eyes, Abby's eyes, is that one action. And it was a terrible action. And maybe he did deserve to be put down for it. But you cannot make an argument he deserved what she gave him, because he didn't even do that to her father. He shot her father in the head and walked by. And that's fucked up. He was unarmed. He shouldn't have done that. But this was not justice. This was vengeance. And I hope that plays out through the season.
Yeah, because I mean, Ellie saw what they did to him. I mean, most of it, right? Not completely, but she saw enough to know what happened. So I'm kind of fascinated. And the previews for this week's episode, obviously Ellie is going to be on the warpath and want revenge and everything else. And the fact that her and Joel, even though she had that conversation with this kid over there, or the person who she's with for most of the episode, there is something to be said of her, like the fact that her and Joel didn't truly reconcile before he ended up dying, right? Because that's why she wanted to go on a patrol with him, was to kind of have like she even says like daddy-daughter, day to go ahead and to kind of like spend some time together. And I guess that was going to be their official patching it up. of what was going on with him. So, yeah, it's
and I
tough
think
episode.
that's going to be that's going to be the important thing, right? Because Ellie never got to have the reconciliation with her dad, and that she was robbed of that, and she was ready for it finally.
Yeah.
That's why she wanted to go out on patrol with him, and she acknowledges it's complicated, and now it's just over. And so, a lot of it's going to be her hatred for what they did, and a lot of it's going to be self-guilt. Like, I should have fucking reconciled with him, because you get a sense that this has been happening for a while, like her and Joel being on the out.
Well, I think they said, did they say this was a 5-year time jump between seasons 1 and 2?
They did, but we don't know how long him and Ellie haven't been speaking.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. No, Dynamite episode, gut wrenching for sure, and sorry, I'm curious to see where the hell this thing goes, man. But it is wild. Yeah, there's a lot of just Game of Thrones vibes. Like, this reminded me of Ned Stark dying, in season 1 of Game of Thrones. The battle with the snow, and it reminded me of like the Wall and the White Walkers and all of that. There was a lot of it. Plus Ellie, the actress, she was also in Game of Thrones as well. So was Pedro Pascal. So that's why there was probably like even more HBO. Right. Like, it was all over the place. So.
I could see that, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So then that will bring us to our official movie of the week, which again, we've been doing our Alan Moore adaptations run for a little while now, and this brings us to Zack Snyder's Watchmen. So I know there are multiple cuts of this. We're going to focus on the theatrical cut tonight, even though I'm probably going to go watch the ultimate cut at some point.
I think I am too.
Yeah, so maybe in a few weeks down the line we can do that and do a little comparison, because I'm kind of curious to know where that's going now. I have read Watchmen. It's been a minute, but I've read Watchmen. Also, I watched this movie, but I'm going to be honest, I think this is only the second time I've seen this movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This wasn't one that I went back and watched a lot. And by the way, we also get to answer the question, and I should have said this before. We're answering the question, Jason. Who watches The Watchmen? We do.
We do.
So, yes. And also, you also said, right? You saw the HBO series. That was a very different adaptation of this.
Very different. I liked some of it. I didn't like some of it. I guess we could talk more about it next when we do the Watchmen follow-up.
Yeah.
With the cartoon and stuff that we're going to be getting into after Thunderbolts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of Watchmen coming up, to be honest. No spoiler there. Next week we'll do Thunderbolts, but we'll get back into Watchmen. The 2-part animated DC animated movies that they did, they broke it up into 2 parts, and that was released within the last year. Those are on Max right now, so we'll jump into those next. Maybe then we get around to the ultimate cut, whichever way, we'll figure that out. But as far as this movie goes, I definitely enjoyed the hell out of it. I do think, and then we were texting, I do think it's one of Zack Snyder's better movies for sure. I don't know, personally for me, it's my favorite of his. It is definitely in the conversation, put it that way. I will for sure say that. I do love his remake of Dawn of the Dead. I think it's one of the best remakes ever.
That's a great movie. That's a tough one.
Yeah, ever. I will put that in a conversation for one of the best film remakes I've ever seen. And then if we can get technical, because like Scarface is sort of a remake too, and whatever.
Yeah, well,
yeah. So yes and no, but like everyone remembers the Pacino, Palmer version. So, but no, this movie hits hard, man. This movie has a lot of feels of, now that we've watched The Boys, because obviously that didn't exist. This TV series didn't exist when I saw this movie originally. I do definitely get a lot of Boys vibes from this, between the violence, the portrayal of superheroes, the sexual nature that is throughout this story. It definitely has a lot of Boys vibes to it, even though I think The Boys takes it to like a completely bonkers and insane level. This is more grounded in some of those things. And yeah, I think it's excellent. I really do think this is an excellent adaptation as well. the choice of not having the giant octopus squid at the end, I thought was the right move. We talked about that as well. And always great to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan as. I mean, I bet you in real life he's probably one of the nicest dudes in the world, but he plays an asshole so fucking well. Between Negan and between the comedian in this,
perfect comedian. He's the I'm gonna go out and say this. I think the casting is perfect in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like across the board, perfect. I'll say for this. So my history with Watchmen is I have read this comic book 7 times maybe in my life. I've read it a lot. I used to teach it back when I was allowed to teach graphic novels to my class. Because I think I argue that it is literature. Like you can say comic book, sure. This is a visual novel. It is hitting so many beats that novels do. It has a fucking treatise and an argument to make. And its argument is, and I think The Boys takes a lot from this very clearly. The argument is, what would the world be worse? Superheroes would make it worse. It explores the psychological landscape of, be attracted to this lifestyle. And I think, that's definitely like the comedian's a fucking hero. Comedian's the worst guy in the movie.
Oh, yeah, no, the comedian is a despicable character.
Absolutely. And I have seen this movie a ton of times because I used to teach it. Like, I would we'd read the book, and then we would watch either the full movie or scenes of the movie to sort of evaluate the what was changed and what was kept and how does it work differently from the page into the visual. So I have seen this movie so many times, and I think as much as I agree with you, I think that the Dawn of the Dead is a fantastic movie, a fantastic remake. This is my favorite Zack Snyder movie.
I can see that.
Even though there are some issues that we can get into. Like there are some things that he does change that isn't the giant octopus. That I think that would not have worked. Because in the book, there are these like sections between the chapters that are just straight novel. And some of it is the original Night Owl's memoir, which they don't really get into. But we get all that information in the opening credits of what happens to all of the old super team, but you get a lot more about that. And then there's like an article about butterflies, and you're like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? And then it's like there's a whole manual about how Dr. Manhattan's existence changed science, and so which they don't have that in this. But that's why Rorschach's mask works because that's why at the end Adrian Veidt's like Boombastis is like this weird genetic creature. That's how they're able to do the space squid, but it doesn't work without all of those things, and you can't put those things in there. So I think they needed to clean it up a bit for the movie. So I have no problem with that, but I think this is an amazing adaptation. Like, I think it is the best adaptation you could do live action. Like, I'm stunned every time I watch it just how faithful it is and how clearly Zack Snyder loved this material in a way that he clearly didn't when he did the DC stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it too because that did pop into my mind. I rewatched this afternoon. So yeah, I did think about that, right? Like it made me think of Zack Snyder's Snyderverse films from DC, even though technically this is a DC property. And I know they intertwined the Watchmen eventually with like Batman and Superman and stuff like that. But either way, like this is still very much on kind of like its own thing. You can see he had a different. This is more up his alley for comic books for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a defender. I like Man of Steel. Like I know I like it more than you do. I enjoy the ultimate cut of Batman vs Superman. While I admit it's not perfect, I still think it's better than that. And his Justice League, the 4-hour epic that was Zack Snyder's Justice League. I mean, I think in that movie that I got the impression that his heart and soul was in that even more than the previous two things he did. But I got that feeling from this as well. That like you could just feel like he genuinely adores the source material, for Watchmen. And this was also said to be like unfilmable. If I remember correctly, a lot of people in Hollywood, obviously they owned the rights to this, but just didn't think that it could be adapted. And say what you will about Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. I mean, I definitely think he knows how to make his films always look great.
Oh.
Visually, he knows exactly what he's doing. His storytelling is when things get a little wonky at times. It's kind of hit or miss.
And I'll tell you something. It's the fact that he visually does such amazing things. Because visually, even Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. I'll leave it at there, out of respect, since we're doing a Zack Snyder movie tonight that I really like. It looks good, right? And like I've actually tried to watch what I think is his worst movie, and I say it's his worst movie because I've never been able to get through it the four times I tried to watch it.
Sucker Punch.
I think visually that looks amazing, but it is just nonsense.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people said about his Netflix movies that was it Rebel Moon or some shit like that. It was like, it was basically he took his like rejected Star Wars script and altered it into some sort of like Star Wars adjacent type situation. And I had no interest in it. I was like,
me neither.
Like, I don't. And I'm not someone who's anti Zack Snyder now, but like you kind of got to get me. I don't know. It depends on what he's doing right now, right? Like I didn't even watch his like Army of the Dead movies on Netflix. Plus, Netflix original movies I think are very hit and miss, mostly miss. It seems like they spend a lot of money on them, but it seems like Netflix movies are usually misses for me, for the most part. But I guess regarding the cast. By the way, just quickly before we get it, because I did want to talk about like the characters. Maybe we'll do one of those. The soundtrack to this movie is fucking crazy. It is. It's amazing. It was a tough decision to pick a song tonight because this was the only option, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's the one we started with. There's "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend" at the funeral scene.
Yeah.
There are a ton of great songs in this movie.
Yeah, Sounds of Silence. There's Along with the Watchtower, which was almost going to be our opener. I was very close to that. But then I figured, when are we going to really open with Cool and the Gang? Very much, probably not.
Yeah, right.
So
there's the Bob Dylan song, "Times Are Changing."
Yes,
and when we talk about characters, at some point before we don't do it now, but I do want to talk specifically about that opening montage, the credit opening montage.
Oh, go ahead. Let's do it now. Before we get into characters.
So, what I actually love that montage, and that montage is not in the book, right? In the book, as I said, all that information about what happens to the former Watchmen is conveyed through this tell-all book that the original Night Owl wrote. But as someone who has read this book as many times as I have, I watch that and I go, oh, they cover in the span of like 3-minute song, these great cinematic stills from like the 1940s. Like they hit all of the beats to the point where you see the guy who it was gunned down because his cape got stuck in the revolving door. That's Dollar Bill. That's a story that they actually say that we learned. That's when we learned you don't wear capes because that's what happens. The original, the woman who I forget her name, but she's the one who kisses the other woman on D-Day or on. They don't really give her name in the movie, and it's been a while, but like you see, like they talk about her being closeted homosexual and murdered because of it, and then you see that visualized. The Mothman, which is the guy they're pulling out to the insane asylum, that's a character that they go on. So like Zack Snyder goes, he even says, okay, I cannot tell all of these stories, but I'm going to put it in there to make sure everyone knows. And then it's not just fan service because it takes us from the first Night Owl, who I think is like the first superhero, right? The first vigilante. And he's actually a good guy, former cop. He's in this movie. He works with or trained the new Night Owl. And it ends, and it starts with them getting, there's him, they get together to take the picture, and it ends with the new Watchman taking the picture, and it shows us everything in between. And it really does set up the world perfectly. And I think, again, that's Zack Snyder understanding what the source material is and being able to kind of say, okay, I need this information there, but I have to do it quickly and visually. And this is probably, unless we do Dawn of the Dead, this is probably going to be the only time I ever gush and love Zack Snyder, so I'm just going to do it. I think it's perfect. I think it's the perfect way to set up this world and where we are. I mean, right down to the comedian being the JFK assassin, how things changed with John Osterman after he becomes, and this is all before you know any of these characters. He sets up the microcosm of the world in this from start to where we are, and then just lets us go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we choose to do the ultimate cut, I'm curious to know what we're going to get out of that, because maybe we get more information. Because this movie, this runtime is almost 3 hours, as is the theatrical cut.
And the ultimate cut's like almost 4, like 3:43, I think it is.
Yeah, it's something like that. So that's what I'm saying. It would almost be like Snyder Cut dedication to get into that, because Snyder Cut's over 4 hours. I guess let's start off with we talked about the comedian a little bit, which is Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who I mean, he doesn't have any superpowers particularly. He just kind of has, uses guns and just beats the living shit out of people essentially, and kills a lot. But he gets murdered, real time. Essentially, what was kind of like the opening scene, what kind of starts getting the current story rolling. Because then Rorschach comes in and jumps into the investigation of exactly who killed the comedian. And that's where you get the iconic smiley face with the blood coming down and stuff like that. Yep. That's in the pin from here.
Rorschach's journal. A comedian died in Manhattan today.
Yes. And yeah, like the comedian, like you mentioned earlier, not a good dude, because we find out through a lot of their stories are told through flashbacks, right? Like we get a lot of their backstory through that. And through him, we find out he raped the initial Silk Spectre, or attempted to rape. He attempted to rape, but eventually, I misspoke. Attempted to rape her, but then we find out later he is the father of the Silk Spectre too. Yeah. And Silk Spectre, the original, she has a complicated relationship with him, because even after that, like, there's moments where she loves him and there's moments where she hates him, and she acknowledges he's not a good dude at all. But even Rorschach knows the comedian's not a good dude, and they all know it. But he's also one of the team, so they're not going to just let him go completely, get murdered, and not give a fuck. Like, oh, he's an asshole, and move on.
And that goes to who Rorschach is. Rorschach is, and we'll get into him when we get into him, but he has a couple lines that really show why he cares so much. Right, an attack on one is an attack on all. Mm-hmm. We're all masks. And one of his last lines of the movie: never compromise, even in the face of Armageddon.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So it doesn't even matter that the comedian is actually worse than any of the villains they put away and fought. And he is. Like, you find out that the comedian tried to rape Sally Spectre, or Sally Jupiter, and only didn't because he was stopped by the Hood. Who has actually a fun little backstory that they go into, where no one knows who he is. They think he's a German wrestler. Then eventually, the German wrestler thought he was never shows up again. Then you see him being the guy who kills JFK, and then in their flashbacks, he is doing something fucked up in every one of those flashbacks. And in Night Owls, which is where we get our song "I'm Your Boogeyman," there's a riot because the police are on strike because of the masks and their overstep, and Night Owl trying to stop them and send them home without violence, and comedian's like, fuck it, I want to get dirty. And he jumps down, and I'm Your Boogeyman starts playing, and he starts shooting unarmed civilians with gas cartridges.
Yeah.
And he's clearly enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. And he's punching women. He's punching, nothing matters with this guy. He's going to fucking clear this shit out his way.
Yeah. He's an absolute psychopath. And again, it goes to like what kind of people would be drawn to this lifestyle. Well, not the people you want.
Yeah.
And I think arguably the worst thing he does, it's not actually the attempted rape, which says a lot about him, is when him and Osterman are serving in Vietnam together, and it ends, and this woman that he has been sleeping with and impregnates comes and's like, the war's over. You got to take care of your kid. And he says, no, fuck you. I'm going to go home. I'm going to forget about you and your shitty fucking country. And she takes a glass bottle and cuts his face, and he murders her. She is pregnant with his child, and he guns her down in cold blood. And when Osterman says something, he says, you didn't stop it. You could have turned the bullet into butterflies. You don't give a shit either.
Yeah. And that gives us a lot of insight into Dr. Manhattan. Also, played by Billy Crudup. Yeah, who does a great job as Dr. Manhattan in this movie. I will say, I did not need the CGI blue dong throughout the movie.
All right. You know what? I'm going to defend the big blue penis for one reason only. It's comic accurate.
No, and I was going to say, yes, I understand. Obviously, I know it's comics accurate, but there are scenes where he decides to cover up in public. I think, again, we don't like the way Marvel covers up the Hulk. They can go the same route.
But here's why I'm going to push back on that, right? Because I actually think when you see his penis is indicative of how detached he is from humanity, right? He's covering up when he's trying to fit in. At the end, when he's decided to leave Earth, I don't have to. I don't get cold. I wear clothes for your sake. I no longer give a shit about fitting in. I'm just going to fucking walk around my big blue dick out. And so I do think it's a character choice and not gratuitous.
I'm half joking because I am not really seriously upset about this at all. And yes, I'm for it being comics accurate. I was just like, all right.
I'm just saying. I'm a big fan of the big blue dick. Is all I'm saying. All right.
All right, fair enough. Listen, the Silver Surfer doesn't. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I agree with you though. All jokes aside, I agree with you that yes, it does show for his character where he's total. Because as the movie goes on, you see how smart he is, how powerful he is, and everything like that. But his detachment, not just from the current Silk Spectre, his detachment from anyone, he even tells her straight out, I don't give a shit, about humanity. I am so far beyond that. Life itself is not precious. That's way overblown. Look at Mars. They do just fine here with no life. And it's chilling when he says that kind of shit, because he doesn't care.
I think the most chilling thing he says is there's no difference between a live body and a dead body, as they all have the same amount of atoms and electrons or something. I'm paraphrasing, but it's whoa.
Well, that shows you how he sees it now.
Famous, exactly, because and again, I think every one of them gets at least one statement that sums up their perspective, and his comes at the end when he says to Adrian Veidt, "You are the smartest man in the world, but you are as dangerous to me as the smartest termite in the hill is to you."
Yeah,
and that's it. He is so far beyond, and it actually does. It gives us one of my favorite memes, which I will post sometimes when I'm on social media. Of I am sick of these people and their machinations and what's going on. I just want to be away from it all. Which that's kind of what he says when he's on Mars.
Yeah, he's just kind of over all that shit. It is really interesting to see that he ended the Vietnam War by getting involved in a week. He just showed up and basically just slaughtered the opposition.
Yep. And then again, that adds to it. We all as Americans, we think it'd be great if we had a superpower, if we had a Superman to help us, and he would get involved. But no, this is what happens. It's not a good thing what happens, because they current day they are 3 minutes to doomsday on the doomsday clock, which actually is a real thing.
No. And he Yeah, and they also you did touch on it. There's a lot of like bragging or very braggadocious the government is in this movie about having the Superman on their side. That he's basically a nuclear deterrent because this is during the Cold War and stuff like that. With Russia, they'll never do anything because we have Doctor Manhattan. But then, like, it just by the end of the movie, it's like an illusion that Doctor Manhattan is kind of watching over them and that he's still around. Like that, it's like people feel safe because they think Doctor Manhattan is still there.
Right.
But obviously not so.
Yeah, and he isn't even the deterrent they claim he is, because they have that conversation. I forget. I think it was is it Night Owl and Vite, Ozymandias, where it's like could John really stop them all? And Ozymandias, like, he could probably stop 99% of them, but the 1% that got through could wipe out life as we know it.
Yeah, very easily, and it's I don't know. There's a lot of things in this movie that are kind of like chilling things to think about, which is why again I enjoyed it so much. And then from Dr. Manhattan, I guess we could also talk about Night Owl, played by Patrick Wilson, who we had seen not long ago as Orm in the Aquaman movies. And the last time we saw him, he was eating a bug in a burger.
That's right.
The last shot of the DCEU. What's that?
It was him eating a bug in a burger. Man, that says everything you need about the DCEU. But I love Patrick. I love him. Right, and I think he is, again, perfect casting all around. Like, this is the first time I met him. Like, I never clocked him in things before, and I have since watched shit with him in it, like the Conjuring movies, just because he was in it.
I got to get around to those. Every year I keep threatening I tell Angie that I'm going to go watch The Conjuring, and then I just never do it because I'm really interested in it.
If you like ghost stories, they're cool, but the thing to keep in mind is they tell you it's a true story, but that's bullshit, because then Lorraine Warner, it's kind of proven they were hucksters.
No, which is fine. I don't care. I'm going to be honest. I didn't even know that they were based on a true story, but I also don't give a shit. I'm just there because I heard the movies were good. I think it's like 4.
Yeah, that first one was pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, so not so much after that.
It's diminishing returns, but I think that first one has got some good stuff in it.
All right. But yeah, with Night Owl too. I mean, he's a really interesting character. He seems to be the genuine guy who wants to be a hero the right way you would think a superhero would want to be, for the most part, right? But he's kind of when we meet him, he's retired and he's kind of going about his way. He's having beer once a week with the original Night Owl, and they're talking and stuff. These retired guys got to stick together type thing. And he's kind of just a little struggling to find what the hell to do with himself now that he's retired and there's no masks and everything like that. He's even got his whole ship and his suit, his bat cave, if you want to say, like under his house. So it's still there. And over time, we learn how much he misses. Because he just hint at it. He asks people, like, do you miss it? This and that. I know he says no early on in the movie. But you fast forward to when he also talks about it. He wouldn't be checking in on all these things as much as if he wasn't missing it at all, really. Yeah. And just fast forward to the scene where, Silk Spectre 2 has left Dr. Manhattan, and they go back to his place, and they're, kind of getting into things, and he seems like he's not fully, like, there. Because I also think that scene happens because he also hears in the news about Dr. Manhattan, because I think he has when it's involved with her, right? And I'm gonna switch over to character name here. No, just has her listed as Silk Spectre too.
Sally Jupiter.
Sally right? Jupiter. Yeah. So when she is no.
Or is that her mom?
That's her mom. So whatever. When he's with Silk Spectre, I feel like he's intimidated by Dr. Manhattan. Like, in every way, shape, and form, he feels like, especially with her, he can't live up to him and stuff. There's an intimidation factor, I think he feels, with Dr. Manhattan. And then right after that, they kind of suit up and start bashing heads. And I think he kind of feels more fulfilled, and that's why they have their scene in
Archie.
Right?
Yep.
Exactly. In Archie.
Yeah, well, I always read that as he is more himself when he is
Exactly.
in the suit. And
Yes.
when it's, and it's not a coincidence that he can't perform when it's just him and the Silk Spectre as people on his couch.
Exactly.
But when they're suited up and the adrenaline's going and they feel they're there, that's when he's his authentic self. And then he's like, Hallelujah's playing in the background.
Yep.
Archie's kicking off fire, and so I think that talks to it too. Like, he retired and he's lying to himself because this isn't who he is. Who he is someone who genuinely wants to do good in this way. Because I think out of all of them, he's the only one who got into it because he wanted to change the world for the better.
Yeah, he genuinely, that's what I'm saying. He genuinely is there to be the hero as we see comic book heroes for the most part, like people who we want, because you had mentioned too, like the comedian's a psychopath who is just there to be there. You know what I mean? Like, he's there to just bash heads and crush skulls and rape and pillage and do whatever the hell he wants to do. But Night Owl too is complete opposite.
Manhattan is so so far away from everyone that he's a super creature, but he doesn't care. There's no humanity. He doesn't give a shit. Silk Spectre was pushed into it by her mother. Rorschach, we find out, is also a fucking psychopath, and Adrian, narcissist. So, like, he literally is the only one embodying what we as a reader see as the values of the comic book hero.
Exactly. And I guess too that can kind of bring us to Rorschach, who we covered in a movie,
yes, we did,
somewhat recently here by Jackie Earle Haley, who this is the first time I remember seeing him.
Me too.
Actually, no, bullshit. Bullshit. He was in the Bad News Bears. At least as an adult, I will say.
Yeah, I know he was a kid actor, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was in the original Bad News Bears, so I take that back. But as an adult actor, though, this was the first time I remember seeing him. And this is the movie that got me on board with him. Like, oh, yes, if this is going to be a reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street, I can see why he's being cast as a new Freddy Krueger. And that didn't work out too well, as we covered on VCP Deep Dive.
Although I do believe we all rated that higher than one of the actual canon Freddy movies, right? We all rated it higher than 5, Dream Child.
Yeah, I think we did, which is yikes. But he was one of the knocks we had on it. But here, he's great in this.
He's perfect. He's perfect.
Yes. He is awesome as Rorschach in this. Totally by his whole thing. The mask looks cool. His whole look looks cool. He's the one investigating the comedian's murder throughout this and putting it together. We learn a lot of the story through his Rorschach journal, which at the end of the movie gets passed on to the media, essentially, which that's how everyone, I guess, in that universe learns about the entire Watchmen.
I want to talk about that at the end. I actually do want to talk about what we think happens after this movie ends.
Okay. All right, so as far as Rorschach's journey in this, like, there's a lot of crazy shit in it. I love to see when Rorschach gets the Rorschach test once he gets arrested.
Oh my god, that's so. You see, like, and so in the comic, and they touch on it here, but in the comic, what's heartbreaking about Rorschach is and it ties into this. We talk about like everyone coming in for different reasons. Rorschach actually is brought to this for the right reasons, right? It's not touched in the movie at all, but in the comic, he's inspired by the Kitty Genovese case, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but what that was, as a Queens boy, I kind of have to be. What that was a woman in I think 1977, who was like murdered by some guy who just was stalking her and stabbed her to death, but he like caught up with her, stabbed her, she screamed. He ran because she was screaming and people were coming to the windows, but no one did anything. All the cops, it actually coined this phrase, the bystander effect, where everyone just went, well, someone else will take care of this, not my problem. And no one did, and so he was able to come back and finish the job. And So Kitty Genovese was murdered. In the comic book, this sets him a path where he wants to protect people, and he wants to be the person to step up and actually, do the job. But when he's taking this Rorschach test, and you find out the case that broke him, the case that made him who he is, was the fucking rape and murder of a little girl by this guy who fed her to his dogs. And it's and you see that in the Rorschach test of he's what do you see? Butterflies. And then you just see like this cleaver in a dog's head. And it's like, that's the moment in the comic, and it's more nuanced in the comic, but that's the moment where I think like Walter Kovacs ceased to exist, and he just becomes Rorschach. And that kind of also comments on like, well, even if you do come to this with the best intentions, there's a quote by Nietzsche that they actually do quote in the book, like, careful those who fight monsters, for when you stare into the abyss stares back. And it's like, that's what happens. He became what he was fighting against because he was mentally broken.
Yeah, even though in his mind, though, they do show that where there's two dogs like chewing on a leg, and everything like that. And again, they give you enough of that, but they don't, spell it out, like you had mentioned. But there is, there's a scene too where Rorschach is talking about how like all these other heroes are having these mental disorders and all this other stuff, and like all this other crap, because he doesn't see it in himself. He sees he's the hero who's doing the right thing, which I guess, I don't know. In the most part of what we see him doing is his methods not great, per se, like hero-wise, sure. He's beating the shit out of people and he's murdering. Right? I'm not defending Rorschach saying he's like great, but I think his intentions, I think, are still pure in a way that he wants to do the right thing. He isn't fully gone comedian. This.
Well, the difference between him and comedian is the comedian doesn't give a shit about the right thing.
Exactly.
Rorschach's perspective on what the right thing is has been so skewed that it is no longer the right thing, but he doesn't see it. Yeah. Like in the scene with Moloch, when he goes and beats the shit out of Moloch, played fucking brilliantly by Max Headroom. I forget his name now, but Moloch at this point is old. He's retired. He's a cancer patient, Matt Frewer, and he is no threat to anyone. And Rorschach breaks into his house and beats the shit out of him because at one point he was a villain, and it's like that's in Rorschach's mind. Sure, that's the right thing because this guy's black and white, bad and good, and that's it. But like, it's not really the healthy perspective of what's right, except it's just the way because his mind is broken. So I think that's the interesting thing. He's still fucked up and he still does terrible shit, but as you said, he does it with the best of intentions, and that's kind of what makes it even more heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I guess the other character we can talk about as part of the team is Ozymandias.
Yes. Well, don't forget Silk Spectre as well. We got to talk about.
Well, what do you want to talk about first? You want to do Silk Spectre, or you want to do?
Let's do Silk Spectre because I think Ozymandias gets us into the plot and the overall like what the fuck is going on. So let's save him for last, then we can dovetail into the case pretty much.
All right. Silk Spectre, like you had mentioned, her mother was the original. She's dealt with a lot of shit and everything like that. And even we see flashbacks to a scene where, her mother is talking about how she was once a hero and stuff like that. And the guy she's with is saying, well, you got old and everything like that. And it's pretty messed up. We see how she's living somewhere and she's obviously retired and is collecting things. And one of them is like this pornographic, like a fan Mexican type thing, like some fan fiction shit.
A fan sent this old book that was made at like a Mexican, it's called Mexican something or other, but it's pretty much like a crude pornographic thing with her in it, and she's kind of like delighted by it, and it's disgusting, and she's like, well, and this is her phrase, right? That like, when you get as old enough as I, and you look back, some of the ugly things stop looking so ugly. Again, I'm paraphrasing. My memory shit, as everyone knows. But
referring to the comedian,
referring to the comedian, it's also like that's part of like that moment with the book, right? Because it's like, yeah, maybe when I was younger I would have been disgusted by this, but now I'm old and I'm past my prime, and it's kind of flattering that, like, the implication is it's kind of flattering guys were jerking off to me.
Basically, that's kind of what she's implying there. But her daughter,
she's drinking her margarita at noon, which I love. She's hammered the whole movie.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, so her daughter, though, she's with Dr. Manhattan. We meet up with them and they have this relationship. And, little by little, though, like as Dr. Manhattan we had mentioned, he's kind of drifting off into his own little world that he doesn't care about humans, stuff like that. She even has like she's questioning a lot of things, like where the hell is he half the time and everything like that. There's even a scene where he like has doppelgangers of himself that are having sex with her while he's working, but then he's claiming that he mentally was with her. Like again, he's just I guess what Dr. Manhattan is. He's so powerful and so everything, like he's just moved beyond anything that human comprehension can be, even though like he shares with her, with Silk Spectre on multiple occasions, like the way he sees things, right? And that's when but her mind always goes back to like some dark suppressed memories that she's having, and there is a lot of that. But eventually she's kind of like done with him, especially after that like sex scene we just discussed, and she finds her way to Night Owl, and she's another one who kind of like wants to suit up and like doesn't want to really be retired. No, she wants to, even though she was, you had mentioned earlier, she was pushed into this life by her mother and was doing it to appease her, right? Because she was expected to. But at some point, I think she just wanted to do the right thing.
Yes.
She wanted to be a hero also. And that's why where her and Night Owl 2, both Silk Spectre 2 and Night Owl 2, find their common ground, and that's probably where part of their attraction is that they want to suit up and go save the day and kind of like do the right thing. But she also has to go back to Dr. Manhattan later on in the movie to say, hey, listen, we got to stop Ozymandias, like, by any means. We need you to help save the fucking humanity. And he's like, do I have to? Maybe? Really? I don't know.
Yeah. What he says to her, right? You were my last link to humanity. When you left, I left.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting dynamic there. I mean, because she still has like some like I don't know. I guess she always will have like some feelings for who he used to be, but not who he currently is.
And also something to really keep in mind is when they meet, she's a kid.
Yeah.
Right. At like that first Watchmen thing that she's at, she is 17, 18. Like she is like, and she's not there because she wants to be. She's kind of pushed into it. It's family legacy. I think when she suits up with Dryberg, that's like she gets into it and actually realizes, okay, maybe this is who I am. But it's the first time she actually gets to explore that. And she starts dating Dr. Manhattan because he's Dr. Manhattan. Look at that big blue penis. Who doesn't want that big blue penis, right? But she's a kid, and then she has this relationship with a much older man, which it is coded as also is that because he's eternal at this point, who is different priorities, and she's not one of them. Even though he keeps saying you're my only link to humanity, and I think he means that, but he's so different. Like than her, he's on such a different level than humanity. But also, it's like if you have like a very young girl with a very old man, it's coded that way, right? It's like priorities are so different. I have all this life experience, you don't. And so I think when she finally leaves him and goes to Dryberg, that's her making a choice for herself, like as an adult. Because in the 80s, in 86, in the current time, she's an adult, and she's. This is her arc is finding her agency, and part of that agency is being with someone who's on her level, who isn't perfect, but is really good, and allowing herself to is through a relationship with an equal instead of being sculpted by a relationship with a god.
Yeah, and also it ties into what we were talking about though, is that we didn't really talk about too much, but like his Dr. Manhattan's relationship with Silk Spectre too is what breaks up his relationship, with his original girlfriend that he was seeing, Janie, and that also spins into the whole thing that which is all apparently a part of the whole grander plan here, where they try to like set up Dr. Manhattan that he's giving people cancer, that he's around, but we find out that's kind of like horseshit because so Spectre doesn't have it, and he's been with her for years at this point. And that sets up again. They're also setting up Dr. Manhattan. We also find out again the person behind all of this is Ozymandias, who's kind of like pulling the strings and everything like that, because he wants to go. Ozymandias is also played by Matthew Goody, who I was also trying to remember where the hell I've seen him in.
I only know this. I think he's perfect, but I only know him for this.
Oh shit, he was in Kingsman.
Who the fuck was he in Kingsman?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna just at least go by Google. Oh, The King's Man, not Kingsman.
Oh, yeah, that's why I don't remember.
Exactly, that's why. But yeah, we find out he's kind of essentially the villain of the movie, who's kind of like has everything. He's pulling the strings behind a lot of the shit that's been going down here, like the murder of the comedian, the setting up essentially of Dr. Manhattan as well. And he's really not in the movie that much. His screen time is like pretty limited until like the end of the movie.
No, and it's the same as the book, but in the book he is in the book his presence is felt more. He's like, you see him on TV a lot, like doing acrobatics, because he's like the world's smartest man, but also most athletic.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the big deal with him catching the bullet at the end, that's set up in the very first chapter. Like, oh my god, he's so athletic. He, the rumor is he could catch a bullet if you fired at him.
Yeah.
And in the comic, you see him like doing Olympic feats, and then there's this whole run through of his cologne or perfume Nostalgia, which we do get a commercial in the beginning. That's what on TV when the comedian's killed. Mm-hmm. But so like, even though he's not in it a lot, his presence is always hovering above the story.
Yes, agreed. But yeah, and it's, I don't know, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of his presence is fine, and I get he's there, but I mean, I don't know, the character himself, like, that was the one thing I guess it doesn't like knock me over with this. Like, I don't know, what did you think in general?
Well, I mean, I guess because I've read the book, it's hard for
me. I'd read it a while ago. I mean, you've read it more than
but I've read it like a ton of times. Yeah. Like, it's hard for me to sort of move the two. I mean, I do like this character because I think his plan sets up a very interesting philosophical question. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's what something I want to discuss with you. Was he right? Like, is his plan right? Because at the end, we see, and we'll talk about what happens after when they found Rorschach's journal, but mm-hmm. his plan works. He murders millions to save billions. Very likely in this world, nuclear holocaust would have happened.
Yes.
And I think his plan is very interesting. And I think the fact that he is, narcissistic in the way that I'm the only one smart enough to do this, is very interesting. In the movie, when he murders all of the scientists to keep his secret, something similar happens in the book, but it's his servants who are helping him do this that he murders. Mm-hmm. And has this whole thing, the pharaohs of old, we have to bury the architects with us to protect the secrets. So I actually do genuinely like that aspect of him. And he also, I think, has my favorite line in the movie, and that's big because this movie has a lot of great lines. When they come to stop him at the end, Rorschach and Night Owl, and Night-Owl's like, we can't let you do this. And he's like, let me do this. I'm not a comic book superhero. I enacted this plan 30 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, no, he says I'm not a no. Does he say like I'm not a comic book supervillain? Like
supervillain. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna lay out his whole thing and all this other shit. Yeah.
That's right. I'm not going to give you my grand stroke if there's any way you can stop it. I enacted it 30 minutes ago. So
that part's good.
I like that. I actually do really like the scene in the book and in the movie where the assassin tries to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a great misdirect. Like the first time I read it, I had no idea he was the villain. And I think, and the way he acts in that is such a good misdirect. So and the fact that he winds up being the villain, even though he is very seriously considered the best of them, because he's also the one who, he unmasks himself. He uses the fact that he was Ozymandias Corporation. He's commercialized. He's the commercialized version of the superhero. He's making action figures. He's meeting with Lee Iacocca and all of these movers and shakers of the business world. Like, so I think that the fact that he is considered the best, smartest, most athletic, most moral of them, and he is in fact the villain, I think is super interesting.
Which I think is just very Alan Moore also. Again, with this whole
100%.
Yeah, which is, again, we talked about how throughout his writing, his feelings for superheroes are,
Oh, he hates them.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. He would be the one who would take the most moral of the one who's perceived as the most moral, commercialized, and everything else, and turn him into the villain.
Absolutely.
So, and I guess also then, all right, so where do you want to go with the findings of Rorschach's journal? Then?
Rorschach's journal. No. All right. So, first question: do you think Ozymandias was right?
I don't know. It's tough because his plan in the end to save. Shit, I was about to botch up the Star Trek quote there. Was it the
needs of the many outweigh
the
one or the
few?
few?
Yes. That's kind of what I was tongue tying over here. Yes, that is obviously the case, but you go from Steve Rogers' perspective. No, we don't leave anyone behind. We don't sacrifice anybody. We don't trade lives.
Right. It's interesting.
Not so much. It is a moral dilemma. I guess I would probably lean on the Steve Rogers side of things, where I would imagine there's got to be another way around it to still stop this from happening. I'm gonna
right.
say, I still think that's where.
Okay, that's fair. This is kind of, I just realized we're talking about it. This is an exploration of the train car question, right? Like if you're there and you see a train coming and it's about to hit 3 people, do you throw the switch and allow it to hit 1? You're saving 3 people, but you personally are killing 1. By taking no action, you personally have done nothing. You didn't kill those 3 people.
Yeah.
It's 1 life more important than 3. And I think like that's exactly what he's doing here. And I don't know if he's right, but I don't know if he's wrong.
I ultimately don't know, but I'm gonna lean on that side of it, since the question's being asked. I'm not gonna dodge it. I'm not gonna find a way out of it. No, I think that's what I would say.
I think I'm gonna say this. I think I'm gonna be with you, because I do think that the way you get somewhere matters. I can't say that I think the ends always justify the means. Yeah. And whereas, yes, he unequivocally saved the world, brought the world back from the brink of extinction, he does it at such a high cost. And I think a big thing, too, is he doesn't pay for it. I think at the end, if he allowed himself justice of being put down, or the justice of having to be punished for his crimes, even not publicly, but even in like Dr. Manhattan. Now you got to take care of me. I'm the last link. I probably would have responded differently, but his plan is I go there and repair. I'm the only one who can rebuild, and I think that's an important factor because that takes it from I'm doing the right thing, I'm making the hard choice and doing the right thing through the wrong way, but I'm also going to hold myself accountable, as opposed to what he does. I'm going to do what I feel is right, even though it's the wrong way to go about it, and then I'm going to make myself the center of attention. I'm going to make myself the hero anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. So Rorschach's journal then.
Rorschach's journal. So what do you think happens like at the end? Because yes, at the end of this movie, so just to go through it for the audience, right? Mm-hmm. Dr. Manhattan murders Rorschach because I don't compromise even the face of Armageddon. Everyone else kind of goes, fuck, Veidt already did this. We didn't stop it. And to expose it means we go back to where we were and all of these millions of people are dead. And I get that. Like, I think they made the right decision. But Rorschach, before he went, put his journal, which is the entire book of Watchmen, into what is in the comic. I don't remember what they say it is here, but it's not a newspaper in the comic in the traditional sense. It's a right-wing propaganda machine called The Patriot, where extreme right-wing people read it. And, and I'm not talking current culture. This is 80s culture. Yeah. So we're talking like gun nuts, quote unquote, just people who are like Rorschach that feel everything is in black and white. And he gives it into the crank file. And so my question is, like, do you think it changes anything? Do you think it matters? Do you think it actually does rip the mask off, pun intended, of what happened? Or do you think it's just written off as nonsense?
I think it depends on... So now, based on the movie, we don't really know. To me, it appeared like it was just a newspaper that got it. But I guess
if
we're going based on a newspaper, I do think it ends up getting published. And I think it kind of does rip the mask off of everything that's there. And the world knows the story, essentially, right, of that. But you're right. If it falls into what the comics say it does, then I would imagine there was probably a group that rallies behind this and probably completely takes it in a completely different direction, where I kind of think we might see something more. If I remember correctly, in the Watchmen series, wasn't there like a group that were kind of like Rorschach instead of there wasn't? That's what I could imagine would happen then.
Yeah.
Where a group of people end up wearing Rorschach. Isn't it the cops that wear the Rorschach masks in that? Or
I believe it.
All right.
No, I believe you're right. I believe there's a section of the cops that do, and I saw this a long time ago, so I might be wrong, but it's a section of the cops that pretty much go and deal with shit that you don't want to be known to be dealing with.
That's what I would think could happen in this. I think that's what would happen if that's where it falls under if a right-wing propaganda machine got a hold of Rorschach's journal. I can see a bunch of cops doing that and essentially running with that. Which is kind of what I wonder. Isn't the series supposed to be a follow-up to the comics? Isn't the comics supposed to be canon in that series?
Yes.
If I remember right. So that's probably...
It is, but they make choices that for like the established characters like Dr. Manhattan and Adrian Veidt that are not rooted at all in the comic book.
All right, so they pick and choose things. So I'm gonna just go with, I think there's a group of cops that happen to take this in ways that they're not supposed to and idolize Rorschach like they idolize the Punisher in the MCU, and I think they go that route. That's my guess.
I like that. That's a good one.
That's what I think.
I'm similar with you. I think what happens is you get a lot of conspiracy theorists who glom onto it, but it's mostly kind of just ignored by the public. Yeah. I don't think it. I think it maybe causes some dissent within a certain group, but I don't think it ultimately derails Veidt's mission. I think Veidt wins. I think,
Yeah.
and that's I think even might be even sad. The sad part is that he did accomplish his fucking mission, even at the expense of millions of people. And in this, framing Dr. Manhattan, because we talked about it not being the octopus, but he frames Dr. Manhattan for this.
No, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, so I think, like, I actually think, and this is, because I know Alan Moore and his work, I think, yeah, no, the utopia stays, and that's kind of part of the tragedy, because the utopia is built on the fucking needless deaths of millions.
Yeah, not exactly the happy ending that.
No,
not certainly not. All right. Anything else on Watchmen then before we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, maybe just a couple things.
Touch on?
A couple things. So I think it's fun that we still have Nixon for a third term.
Yes.
Because fuck, why not, right? The superpowered people were created under Nixon. Nixon can do what he wants. Nixon's using the comedian, and that's why he never gets caught with Watergate, because the implication is the comedian took care of that for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite part of the comic and this movie is the Dr. Manhattan origin, where he gets caught in the, because that feels very 1960s comic book. Like, I was caught in an intrinsic field accelerator. What does that do? I don't fucking know. It made me a superhero.
Exactly. It's just whatever your powers, roll with it. Gamma, go.
Yep. And I love the scene in the comic and the movie where he reforms himself. It's Tuesday and an exoskeleton is seen appearing briefly on the out. Like, I think that is so wonderfully done. And it goes to the end when, like, he's trying to kill Veidt or fight. Yeah, he's trying to kill Veidt, and Veidt, like, uses the intrinsic field accelerator and thinks he killed him, and he reforms himself, and he's like, I mean, John Osterman, that was the first trick he learned. That didn't kill him. You thought that was going to kill me? I love that. I love the Rorschach stuff. Like, you find out, like, he was a violent kid. His mother was a whore, quote, like, I'm using the language. I don't use that, but the language of the book. But she was a sex worker, which is why he's incredibly traumatized, which is why he is able to mentally break. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could be here all night going through the shit I love about this story, but yeah, I think this is, for me, a home run for Zack Snyder. And I know a lot of people do have their issues with it. I'm not saying it's perfect. There are certain, like, the one weird thing that they change is when Night Owl sees Rorschach get killed, he gives the very Zack Snyder no. In the book, he doesn't see Rorschach get killed. He's actually sleeping with Sally Spectre again, with Miss Jupiter again, in Adrian's, like, palace. But yeah, that's, I guess that's, I could stop there, because again, I could literally just fucking go on about this movie and this book.
I mean, we're not done with Watchmen by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we're only getting started, because we do have we have a lot of Watchmen to discuss. There's been so many versions of it. Again, in a couple of weeks, not next week, we're going to take a brief time out from Watchmen. We got Thunderbolts and all its spoilerish, goodness. We could really fully dive into Thunderbolts. But in 2 weeks, then we can discuss. We want to do the ultimate cut and then the animated version as well. So we got 2 more weeks of Watchmen.
Okay.
To discuss, going forward.
All right, good. So if anything comes up, I'll just save it for then.
Oh, we will be watching The Watchmen, my friend. Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Can we get into the Simpsons thing, the Watchmen babies? Did you ever see that? The Simpsons?
No, I didn't.
They had, like, it's a small thing, but there's a cartoon that they're watching, and it's Watchmen babies, and it's pretty much Muppet Babies, but baby Watchmen. I gotta see if I can find and send you that clip.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I mean, that wraps it up for us this week. Then, thanks for always joining us. If you're checking us out on a Facebook live stream, be sure to check out Granny's PhD's Facebook group, where we share a lot of trailers and lots of other good stuff that don't make the show. Also, check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com. because that's what we are presented by. And on YouTube, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros or wherever you found your podcast. I said Jason and I will be back next week. We will be discussing the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts! Astros. And all its spoilery goodness. Tonight, we just wanted to get our overall thoughts about the film out there. But can't wait to really get into the details and the nitty-gritty of that. And also, we will be discussing episode 3 of The Last of Us season 2 and find out what happens with Ellie and the repercussions of what the heck happened with Joel this week, his death. It's should be interesting. So we'll see you next week then. Peace.
Later.